This is Linda Glauben, and today is Thursday, August 17th, 2023. I'm here with Don Epstein, and he's going to tell us about himself. Don, give us a little bit of information just about who you are.
Okay, I'm Don Epstein. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio in January of 1930, and I lived there until we eventually moved to Dallas at about 7 years ago. It'll be 7 years at the end of October. And we've been here since then. We've been, I would say, since December, January of that year, we started coming to the J. So, and for us, it picked up some of the things that we left in Cleveland because we were very active at the time in volunteering when we retired. I retired in 1999, and my wife Joanne retired in 2000 or 2001. And ever since then, we were doing a lot of volunteering at nonprofit organizations. And then when we came here, we weren't sure of what to do because it's a whole, even though we used to visit here for many years, the difference was that it was just family when you come down. But once we were here, my oldest daughter kind of mentioned about hearing about the J. They have exercise programs. You can meet people. So we decided to join the senior program at the J. And for us, it became a replacement for some of the things we had in Cleveland. And actually at the J, we eventually got involved in some of the programs, did a little volunteering, helping out, and it was nice. We met a lot of people, and it's just been good. When we moved here, my oldest daughter actually came to Cleveland and moved us.
That was nice.
And what was nice was that before we came here, she had looked for a place for us to live, and she found this half of a duplex, and she gave us information and everything, and we decided to buy it. And we actually bought it as partners. She and her husband, and with us, we each own half of the duplex. And it's located at Hillcrest in Arapahoe, which is a little over 4 miles from the J.
So you're close by.
And it's just like a clear shot right down Hillcrest to North Haven, and we're here.
That's great. So you're here often?
We're here every day, Monday through Friday, and we do a class. Most of the classes are from 11 to 12. So sometimes we stay for lunch, not too often, because the lunches are great, but they're too big. And
I've never heard that before.
and the thing is, we eat a regular dinner, and so if we eat at the J, sometimes in the evening for dinner, we'll have popcorn or an ice cream.
That's my kind of dinner.
And that's it. Now, the other thing is, my wife's youngest sister had moved here after she and her husband graduated from Kent State. He was an attorney, and he got his law degree at Akron University, and eventually he got a job in Omaha, Nebraska, and came and was there for a few years. And this job opened up in Dallas, and then they moved here. So they were here before my oldest daughter came down. And
Nice.
she came down in the hot year of 1980.
The heat wave.
And I drove down with her. And we had a car that had just had a air conditioner put in, and it kept breaking down. But it was, I stayed for the rest of the week at my sister-in-law's because she kept my daughter until my daughter found an apartment. And the apartment she lived in was on Steppington, right off of 75, and right around the corner from Cindy's.
She had a place to eat dinner.
That's right. And my son-in-law had a sister living here. He was originally from El Paso, and he's an attorney. And on the whole, we do pretty well with the family.
Good.
My youngest daughter came down the following year, and my oldest daughter eventually found her a job, and she stayed. So
you were born Jewish, raised Jewish?
Yes.
And
my mother.
how did your Judaism impact your life?
My mother came from a family. Her parents had 10 children,
My
7
goodness.
girls and 3 boys. And my mother was actually born in Chelsea, Massachusetts. So I have a feeling that her family came through Boston, settled in Chelsea, and eventually moved to New York in Harlem. My one aunt, she was the oldest sister to my mother, married a New York fella, and they stayed when the rest of the family moved to Cleveland. So, and growing up, we were in the Glenville area of Cleveland, which was, at the time we moved, or that I was born, it was predominantly a Jewish neighborhood. The high school, at the time I went, Glenville High School, it's pretty nationally known because a number of pro football players came.
Oh, really? Oh.
But that, at the time, I would say was about 80% Jewish and 20% Gentile. So, growing up, I grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. The one thing I will say is I never got bar mitzvah. I have 2 brothers, or I had 2 brothers, both were bar mitzvah. But for some reason, I don't know why.
It's never too late.
Right?
You can still do it.
Oh,
My father-in-law did it when he was 70, I think.
well, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, your father-in-law, was he,
Max Glauben.
right?
You know,
Would you know his birthday is the same birthday as mine, but 2 years earlier?
So January
14,
14th, 1928.
8, and I was 1930. Because we talk about when I used to meet him.
That's funny.
So,
Wow.
So there is a relationship.
Connection there.
Right.
So you were very fortunate to be able to be in a Jewish community growing up. And
Right.
what holidays are your favorite holidays? What are holiday? And what are the customs or some of the things about Judaism that you love?
Okay, well, I like 2 holidays specifically. One is Passover, and the other is Hanukkah. Because both of those are, the families all got together.
Yeah.
And when I was young, because I was born during the Depression. So back then, in my early years, we didn't have much. My father at one time was a bank manager. He was an accountant, but back then it was a bookkeeper, but then he was the bank manager. And when the Depression hit, the bank closed and he was out of the job. And he was out for a few years. And it wasn't easy, but we always had food. So he used to pick up side jobs. I know in my young years, he had a couple of clients that he did their books for him. So that's how he made some of his money until he got a full-time job. And that was a little before we got married. So, so growing up, in the summertime, I could leave the house 7:30 in the morning and not come back home until about 8, 9 o'clock.
When the street lights came on.
Well, no, when my mother started yelling for me. Because that's, a lot of times we were just playing outside on the streets. We had a baseball field that was a field, we called it the dump. And we had, the bases were rocks. And it was like the infield was just like bare ground. And then there was some grass out in the outfield. And when we played there, we would leave in the morning and they'd come home. We'd play baseball all day.
That's fun though.
So I had pretty much of a sports growing up, baseball.
Baseball's your favorite?
Baseball was my favorite back then. And little by little, I got into football. And back then, when you played football, you didn't have uniforms. You just played what you were wearing. And it was funny because we would go to some of the parochial school football games, and here they are with nice uniforms.
And so, how did you get in, you were in finance? How did you
Yes.
get into finance?
My father, as I said, was a bookkeeper.
Right.
And when I was about 6, 7 years old, this is when he had his full-time job. He worked at this food purveyor at the Cleveland Food Terminal, which had a lot of purveyors that sold all kinds of vegetables, fruits, even the meats and so forth. So he would take me down there on the weekends sometimes when he went in to do some work. And he would show me, you know, using the hand adding machine, would you and cranked it. So he had me doing that. And when I was around 7, 8 years old, he had taught me how to do bank reconciliation. So I would do the reconciliation of the bank for the company.
That's pretty good at that age.
So, and through that, I liked accounting. So I took up bookkeeping and everything. Just before we got married, I was going to, at the time it was Fenn College, and they had night school. So I used to go to night school. When we got married, on and off, because there were some years there I couldn't even go to class at night because I was working. And eventually I got my accounting certificate. So I did clerical work. And actually, my first job when I graduated high school, I actually drove a truck for a dry clean tailor supply company, and I used to drive the truck to the different tailor shops and stuff, and I would take the, back then you had the paper bags to hang over the
Oh,
clothes,
right,
and
right.
that, I get boxes of hangers, so that's the stuff I was doing, thread, all that stuff we had,
My father-in-law was in that business. How about there's another connection?
yeah. So that was my
What-
first job for a year.
Yeah, that's
Then
great.
I got into working for 6 months I worked for this wholesale meat purveyor at the Cleveland Food Terminal. My father got me the job.
Mhm.
Then I got the job working at this television place. And it was called General Telly, and they were one of the large television dealers in Cleveland at the time. And I worked in the office, and then I also, if customers would come in and they didn't have salesmen there at the time, I would go out and take care of them or help them try and sell TVs until they added on appliances. And I worked there for about 3.5, 4 years, but it was during that time, that's when I met my wife.
What attracted you to Joanne?
Pardon?
What attracted you to Joanne?
Well, I came in, I used to come in at the time, like, when you bought a TV, you signed a mortgage. And the mortgage paper, we sold to
Mhm.
for the mortgage, and then they would put in their fee, and then you bought it on time, and you had a payment book. So I used to take the mortgages down to her company. She would go through them, they check through to approve the loan, and then we would get a check. So I would go down, they would check the different ones, and the ones that were approved, it might be a couple days later, I would get a check and bring it back. Well, I got to the point where I kind of liked her. We used to talk a lot and everything, and I started asking her out. And it took quite a while before she even said, "I'll go out." So a couple times we would go for lunch together. But then when I asked her out, that became a big problem on our first date.
Being on time.
So, but the thing is, the first night, I had made arrangements to pick her up at 6 o'clock. And about a little before 6, I called her and said, "I'll be late," because we were busy at the store. And then about another half hour or so later, I called her again. And I think it was about 4 times. The 4th time was picking her up around 8 o'clock. So I came down and picked her up. And at the time, I had a 1950 DeSoto convertible.
Hang on.
I think that makes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I came down, I parked in front of the hotel where she was living, and she came out, and that's when we went to this restaurant bar called Pete's Wayside Inn. And they made this sort of a drink, Ward 8. We tried it, we liked it, we had that. And then they had an open-faced steak sandwich with French fries.
Ooh.
Would you believe it was $2?
Wow. For steak dinner.
And that started it. Then we started.
How did you propose?
I mean, it took me a few times.
Yeah?
She finally said yes.
And here you are 70 years later.
That's right.
That's amazing. That's wonderful.
It was on May 20th in 1952.
Wow.
Oh, no, 1953, because then we got married in August.
Oh, nice. Very
So,
nice.
and if you want the whole story.
Well, maybe we'll take the Cliff Notes today. But I want to know more about your Judaism and how I know you practice here, you do some things here at the J, but in your home, if I came into your home, how would I know that it's a Jewish home?
Other than a couple pictures and that, and
Food.
the food, yeah,
Yeah.
some of the food.
Menorahs,
Yeah,
things like that.
Because basically, when we got married, like Joanne's mother was Jewish, her father was Catholic. And I got, how would you say, I got it into a marriage of
Two faiths.
the two faiths. I always say I got the best of both worlds,
I agree.
because we would celebrate all the Jewish holidays, and then on the other holidays, the Catholic holidays, we would usually celebrate the different ones. When we were first married and we had our children, even on Easter, we would get dressed up. We would go down to the Art Museum in Cleveland, having my girls all dressed with a hat and white gloves.
Patent leather shoes.
So, I mean, we did that.
Yeah.
But the thing is, we did both. So I got to the point. I'm a Reformed Jew, but I will say that I never found much to be against any of the other religions. I think a person, whatever they are, as long as they do what's right, that's the main thing. And I think we had a good time because her brother and two sisters all married in the Catholic religion. So basically, there's always been real good relationship
Between the both.
with the family, yeah.
Or what kind of things do you do with your grandchildren to instill Judaism in their lives?
Well, the holidays, we celebrate all together. Even my middle daughter, who married a Catholic fellow, they all come, so we all celebrate together. And it's the same thing with the Catholic, like Christmas and that. When we get together, we all get together. So it's been for us, it's been a good life.
That's great.
So,
Anything else you want to add?
Trying to think now. The only thing was where I had in the Jewish life, we always, during the holidays, Passover and Hanukkah, Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, we always did that, and it worked out, even with our friends, because in Cleveland, a couple of our friends at the time, their family, we would sometimes get together with them in later years
Mhm.
and have Passover with them, so forth, because by that time, my parents were gone. Joanne's mother and father were gone, so we had that. My one brother, my middle brother, had moved to California. My older brother, who was 10 years older than me, we always did things a lot together. So, but on the whole, I think we lived a pretty decent life.
Great. Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.